Now, face the mighty bison.
Event Hubs released this news article about Virtual Fighter 6, and I feel Virtual Fighter is just straight up slandering Tekken 8. Everyone sees what's happening with Tekken 8. Whether you say the game is good or bad or not, the fact that the game is so controversial and so chaotic, everyone sees it. And the Virtual Fighter developers is marketing their game as kind of like a counter to Tekken 8. You guys are unhappy with that flashy garbage game Tekken 8 that is catering to casuals. Will come play a real fighting game that's grounded, that's realistic, that's honest, and that's not doing all of that stuff. That's literally how they're marketing their game. And it speaks volumes to what Tekken 8 is doing and also how it's affecting the players. This is what we wanted though. We wanted Tekken 8 to have competition because we feel like they're not doing good. So Virtual Fighter competing in such a obvious way, hopefully it lights a fire under the Tekken team and it motivates them to make their game better. The news article headline says Virtual Fighter developers are aiming to keep the game plain and honest rather than filling the screen with flashy things like fireballs. You talk about Tekken 8, how this game used to be grounded and now it's not. And I don't want to be a hypocrite because I play Yoshimitsu. Yoshimitsu has been wild. I can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, I just like the martial arts, no weapons, no this, no that. Yoshimitsu's pretty crazy. But even from a Yoshimitsu player, this game adds way too many projectiles and way too many just like flashy stuff. Full screen power crushes, pistols that shoot and give mix-ups. Like, it's way too much and everyone is saying it and everyone is seeing it. This is a crazy headline. This news article here basically talks about how they dropped a sneak peek at the Game Awards. Everyone loved it. Everyone was really hype. It was a small sneak peek, but it was enough to get the player base going. This is what you want, right? A teaser that explodes. In this part here, it says, in the interview, the developers explain how they will compete with Street Fighter and Tekken in this modern era of fighting games. Of course, the developers acknowledge that this will be no easy task. Something that Tekken players also like to say as well is that it's impossible for Virtual Fighter to beat Tekken. Tekken's bigger, Tekken's the more known, it's impossible. But if you go back to the previous generation, Tekken 7 did better than Street Fighter 5. It sold better. Now, why did it sell better? It sold better because one, the game was better, two, the game was supported better, but then three, the biggest aspect of it is Street Fighter 5 shot themselves in the foot. Now, what is Tekken 8 doing right now? They are just letting their foot have it right now. What Tekken 8 is doing is the same thing that Street Fighter 5 did and was the same thing that allowed Tekken 7 to swoop in and steal the thunder. Virtual Fighter 6 can do the same thing if Tekken doesn't pick back up. A quote says, on that note, when it comes to Virtual Fighter and the story around it, it feels familiar to me. K1 to me. The next part says we recently took notice of a leaked image of Virtual Fighter that seemingly displayed an extra gauge within the user interface during gameplay. Many theorize that this could be some sort of EX or super gauge, but there's also the possibility that it might just be a stun bar. Regardless, it would seem that we won't have to worry about Virtual Fighter reworking its identity to be more like Street Fighter or Tekken. In other words, the developers have explained that their intent is to have Virtual Fighter revolve around plain and honest fighting techniques. On that note, when it comes to Virtual Fighter and the story around it, it feels similar to K1 to me. K1 was originally straight-laced karate organized events started by, okay, I'm not going to pronounce that name, but shout out to that guy. The K1 fighters would use karate, kickboxing, or things that have been around for a long time, and there wasn't anything new. The entertainment of the matches was quite different for something like a pro wrestling. There wasn't anything flashy and it was very plain fight. But by adding in its path and story which has led to the fighters to this point, it became a top level entertainment. Speaking to that aspect of how martial arts as a sport, as an entertainment rose up, you could take UFC as an example. You could take professional boxing as an example. These are some of the oldest practices. These are ancient fighting styles. Yes, they have been modernized a lot, right? But when Tekken 8 came out, this is what we wanted. We talked about characters like Steve Fox and how they can make him like a more modernized boxer and give him a lot of like signature techniques from other, legendary boxers of this era. Same things with many different karate, kickboxing, and other martial arts. These fighting styles have been pushed forward a lot. We were looking for that to be expressed in Tekken 8. Tekken 3 and 5, those games did a really good job of bringing some of these martial arts to the game, which is why a lot of people who do martial arts like Tekken, or they got into martial arts because of Tekken. Eddie is the biggest example of this. When you talk about Virtua Fighter, once again, this is the foundations of what this game is being built upon. I am most certainly interested in how this game will try and achieve many different fighting styles, but make it realistic, not putting some weird anime cartoon twist on it or making it something like unrealistic, but like taking a realistic approach to some of these fighting styles, but also modernizing it. The Tekken developers act like normal fighting is boring, but the reason why I brought up UFC and boxing is because those things are so popular today. The idea that you need to add some other stuff to the fighting for it to be exciting is not really true, and I think the developers convinced themselves of that. It says, so rather than change the rules or fill the screen with flashy things, we'd like to keep it plain and honest and try to and enhance that side of it as its draw. From my perspective, that's what we have to do. Let's not just act like this game is so perfect and Tekken 8 is so bad. Let's imagine that this is their best way forward. The only way they can really compete with Street Fighter and Tekken 8 is not to copy them, is not to imitate them. We saw that imitation never beats the original when it comes to video games. So going this route of like, we're super grounded and we're super realistic and look at how realistic we are, we're way better than those guys. Maybe that's the way to like really like trick the players into, I say trick, but it's like it's a marketing tactic. This is a marketing tactic. Why are they doing this? Are they doing this because they really want to be different from Street Fighter and Tekken, or are they doing it because they have to be different because they can't compete with them in the same way that they're making a game? So only way to market their game and make their game is if it's in a clear contradiction to them, and they sell it as something greater and something better and something that the players want. It's a very interesting strategy. Like, these are billion-dollar companies that's going neck and neck, and I think it is interesting to stop every once in a while and just really think about why they're doing what they're doing, instead of just saying, yeah, they're doing it because they're doing it and it's great. Like, just dig deeper sometimes. But let's continue. That's why you can look at games that have Hadouken or flashy special moves like pro wrestling type of entertainment, while the entertainment that Virtua Fighter is aiming for would be closer to K1 was. So you could compare Tekken 8 to like a WWE, and you could compare Virtua Fighter to like a UFC. So rather than change the rules or fill the screen with flashy things, we'd like to keep it plain and honest and try to enhance that side of it as it's a draw. From my perspective, that's what we have to do. So far, they have the entire player base on their side, and the only thing that can stop themselves is themselves, like Harada and Michael Murray did, right? Everyone was on their side. The game sold too many copies the first month, and then they started to do a lot of garbage and players turned on them, right? So Virtual Fighter is in that same position where everyone's siding with them, but if people turn on them, it would only be their own fault. Very hyped for this game. I'll continue to make videos about it and also do some comparisons to Tekken 8 because a lot of people are doing that, but that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.